Part 1. The sky was unusually clear that morning, a deep shade of blue stretching endlessly above Earth. People went about their days as they always did, working, studying, playing, or simply enjoying the calm weather. But no one noticed the faint shimmer high above in orbit. It wasn't something you could see with the naked eye, not yet. Yet it signaled the beginning of something extraordinary and terrifying. At exactly 10:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, everything changed. A sudden flash lit up the horizon, brighter than any sunrise. Across the world, people stopped what they were doing and looked up. The source of the light became clear within seconds. An enormous alien fleet had entered Earth's atmosphere. Dozens of massive ships hovered silently in the sky, each one larger than any human-made structure. Their sleek designs glowed faintly with pulsating lights, making them look like otherworldly creatures floating ominously over cities and oceans alike. Panic spread quickly. Phones buzzed with alerts, social media exploded with videos and photos, and news channels interrupted programming to cover the event live. Everyone wanted answers, but none came, at least not right away. Then, without warning, a voice boomed across every device capable of producing sound. TVs, radios, smartphones, even car stereos crackled to life with the same chilling message. "We are the Varnock," the voice declared in perfect English, though its tone dripped with disdain. "Your species is primitive, weak, and unworthy of the resources this planet holds. You will surrender your world to us or face annihilation." The speaker identified himself as Commander Xylar, leader of the Varnock fleet. His words sent shivers down spines around the globe. He spoke with an air of superiority, mocking humanity for its supposed inferiority. "Your pathetic attempts at resistance amuse us," he continued. "But make no mistake, we are not here to negotiate. We are here to take what belongs to us." As the transmission ended, silence fell over much of the planet. Streets emptied as people gathered indoors, glued to their screens, trying to process what they had just heard. Some cried, others prayed, and many argued about whether the aliens were bluffing. Whatever the case, there was no denying the sheer size and power of the ships looming overhead. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes stood frozen for a moment before snapping into action. She immediately called an emergency meeting with her top advisors, including General Robert Carter, head of the United States Armed Forces, and Dr. Emily Dawson, a renowned astrophysicist who specialized in extraterrestrial phenomena. The three of them convened in the Situation Room, where maps, satellite images, and data feeds filled the walls. "This isn't some sci-fi movie anymore," General Carter said grimly. "We're dealing with real threats here. Our weapons might as well be toys compared to what those ships can do." Dr. Dawson nodded, her expression thoughtful but tense. "They've clearly been observing us for some time," she said. "Their technology is far beyond anything we've developed, but we need to focus on finding weaknesses if there are any." President Hayes listened intently, her mind racing through possibilities. "What options do we have?" she asked. Finally, "Can we fight back or should we try negotiating?" General Carter shook his head. "Negotiation won't work with these guys. Did you hear how dismissive they sounded? They don't see us as equals, they see us as pests. And fighting them head-on would be suicide," Dr. Dawson added quietly. "But—" She hesitated, glancing at the president. "There might be another way." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Another way?" Dr. Dawson took a deep breath. "For years, we've been working on a classified project, something called Operation Phantom. It involves advanced technology reverse-engineered from crashed alien probes found decades ago. If we deploy it now, we might stand a chance." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. Operation Phantom was a closely guarded secret, known only to a handful of people. Even Laura hadn't been fully briefed on its details until now. "How effective is it?" she asked cautiously. "It's risky," Dr. Dawson admitted. "The technology is experimental, and using it prematurely could expose our hand too soon, but given the circumstances—" She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. After a long pause, Laura made her decision. Prepare it, she said firmly, but keep it hidden for now. Let's see how the situation develops. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the United Nations Space Defense Force, UNSF, Captain Daniel Brooks received urgent orders to report to headquarters. As he strapped himself into his seat, his thoughts raced. He had spent years training for scenarios like this, but nothing could prepare him for the reality of facing an actual alien invasion. Daniel's crew consisted of some of the best pilots and engineers humanity had to offer. Among them was Lieutenant Rachel Scott, a brilliant tactician with nerves of steel, and engineer Marcus Lane, whose expertise in experimental tech had earned him a spot on the elite team. Together, they represented Earth's last line of defense, if things came to that. Back on Earth, ordinary citizens struggled to come to terms with the unfolding crisis. In New York City, journalist Sarah Miller scrambled to document the chaos. Armed with her camera and microphone, she roamed the streets, capturing raw emotions from passers-by. Some expressed anger, others fear, and a few clung to hope. "They can't just walk all over us," shouted a man outside Times Square. "We've got brains too." Sarah nodded sympathetically, jotting down notes. Nearby, a young woman held her child close, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want my baby growing up under alien rule," she whispered. Despite the despair, small acts of courage began to emerge. Volunteers organized food drives and community meetings, while scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to devise solutions. Humanity, though frightened, refused to give up without a fight. Hours passed and the Varnock fleet remained eerily still. No further messages came from Commander Zeiler, heightening the tension. Were they waiting for a response, planning their next move, or simply savoring the fear they had instilled in billions of people? Unbeknownst to the invaders, preparations were underway. Deep underground, engineers fine-tuned the mysterious fleet tied to Operation Phantom. Above ground, military leaders strategized, diplomats debated, and ordinary citizens prayed for salvation. And somewhere in space, invisible ships waited patiently, ready to reveal themselves when the moment was right. For now, humanity held its breath, wondering if this would be the end or the beginning of a new chapter in its history. Part 2. As the hours ticked by, the weight of the situation settled heavily on Earth. The Varnock fleet remained motionless in orbit, their massive ships casting ominous shadows over cities and towns below. People tried to go about their lives, but it was impossible to ignore the looming threat above. Every glance at the sky reminded them that humanity's fate hung precariously in the balance. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes sat in the Situation Room with her advisors, poring over maps and data feeds. The room buzzed with tension, voices overlapping as everyone scrambled to come up with a plan. General Robert Carter leaned over a table, pointing at a holographic projection of the alien fleet. "Their shields are impenetrable," he said grimly. "Even our most advanced missiles wouldn't scratch them." Dr. Emily Dawson nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "That's why we need to rely on Operation Phantom," she said firmly. "It's risky, but it's our only shot." Laura hesitated, her fingers tapping nervously on the edge of the table. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "We don't know," Dr. Dawson admitted. "The Varnock haven't made another move yet, but they're probably assessing us. They'll strike when they're ready, and we can't afford to wait until then." General Carter crossed his arms. "If we deploy the fleet too soon, they'll see what we're capable of and adapt. But if we wait too long..." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone already knew the consequences. After a moment of silence, Laura made her decision. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "But keep it hidden for now. We'll use it as a last resort." She turned to Dr. Dawson. "Can you find a way to communicate with them? Maybe buy us some more time?" "I'll do my best," Dr. Dawson replied, though her tone suggested she wasn't optimistic. Communicating with an alien species, especially one as hostile as the Varnock, was no small task. Meanwhile, aboard the UNSF Eclipse, Captain Daniel Brooks and his crew worked tirelessly to prepare for whatever might come next. The flagship was stationed in low Earth orbit, close enough to monitor the Varnock fleet but far enough to avoid detection, for now. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Everyone knew the stakes. Lieutenant Rachel Scott stood beside Daniel on the bridge, staring out at the alien ships through the viewport. "They're just sitting there," she muttered. "It's like they're mocking us." Daniel clenched, his jaw but didn't respond. He shared her frustration, but he couldn't afford to let his emotions get the better of him, not when so many lives depended on his leadership. Instead, he turned to engineer Marcus Lane, who was busy running diagnostics on the ship's systems. "How's everything looking?" Daniel asked. Marcus glanced up from his console. "The cloaking device is stable, but it's still experimental," he said cautiously. "If we push it too hard, we risk exposing ourselves." "Understood," Daniel said. "Keep monitoring it. We can't afford any mistakes." Back on Earth, ordinary citizens continued to grapple with the reality of the invasion. Journalist Sarah Miller spent the day traveling across New York City, capturing stories from people whose lives had been turned upside down. She interviewed a young father who had barricaded his family inside their apartment, a scientist who insisted humanity could still fight back, and a schoolteacher who tearfully confessed she didn't know how to explain this to her students. Sarah herself felt torn between fear and determination. As a journalist, she knew it was her job to report the facts, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this story was bigger than anything she'd ever covered before. It wasn't just about politics or economics, it was about survival. Humanity's survival. At one point, she stopped by Central Park, where a large crowd had gathered to watch the alien ships hovering overhead. Some held signs demanding action from world leaders, while others simply stared in stunned silence. A man standing nearby caught her attention. He was holding a homemade sign that read, "We are not alone, but we are not weak." Curious, Sarah approached him. "What made you come here today?" she asked, microphone in hand. The man shrugged. "I just wanted to remind people that we're not helpless," he said. "Yeah, those ships are scary, but we've got brains and heart. That counts for something." Sarah smiled faintly and thanked him before moving on. His words stuck with her, though. Maybe humanity wasn't as powerless as the Varnock believed. Elsewhere, deep underground, engineers and technicians worked around the clock to ready the invisible fleet tied to Operation Phantom. The project had been decades in the making, born out of secret experiments conducted on extraterrestrial artifacts recovered from remote locations around the world. These artifacts had provided glimpses into advanced alien technologies, which scientists had painstakingly studied and reverse-engineered. The result was nothing short of revolutionary: a fleet of sleek, futuristic warships equipped with cloaking, devices that rendered them invisible to both the naked eye and radar. Each ship was armed with cutting-edge weaponry, designed to punch through even the toughest alien defenses. The catch? The technology was untested in real-world conditions, and deploying it carried significant risks. Dr. Emily Dawson visited the facility late that night, accompanied by a team of specialists. They walked through rows of gleaming ships, their surfaces shimmering faintly under the artificial lights. Despite the urgency of the situation, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This was humanity's greatest achievement, a testament to ingenuity and perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. "This is it," she said softly, turning to the lead engineer. "Make sure every ship is ready to launch at a moment's notice." The engineer nodded. "We're doing everything we can," he assured her. "But remember, these ships weren't meant for prolonged combat. If we push them too far—" "I know," Emily interrupted. "Let's just hope it doesn't come to that." Back in space, Daniel and his crew kept a close eye on the Varnock fleet. Sensors picked up faint energy readings emanating from the alien ships, suggesting they were powering up for something. Whether it was an attack or merely routine maintenance, no one could say for sure. Rachel broke the silence on the bridge. "Do you think they know about Operation Phantom?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "If they did, they wouldn't be sitting idle like this. They'd be hunting us down. Or maybe they're waiting for us to make the first move," Rachel countered. "Either way, we can't let our guard down," Daniel said firmly. Stay sharp. Hours later, the tension reached a breaking point. Just as dawn began to break, over the eastern hemisphere, the Varnock ships shifted position slightly. It was a subtle movement, almost imperceptible, but it sent alarms blaring throughout the Eclipse's systems. "What's happening?" Daniel demanded, rushing to the main console. Marcus scanned the readings frantically. "They're redirecting power to their weapons arrays," he reported. "Something's about to happen." Rachel's voice was steady but urgent. "Orders?" Daniel hesitated for a split second before issuing his command. "Sound the alert. Tell HQ we may have incoming." Within minutes, the message reached Earth, sparking panic among world leaders. President Laura Hayes convened another emergency meeting, her face pale but resolute. "This is it," she said quietly. "Get me Dr. Dawson." When Emily arrived in the Situation Room, she wasted no time. "Madam President, we need to authorize deployment of Operation Phantom immediately," she said. "If we wait any longer, we risk losing the element of surprise." Laura nodded. "Do it," she said, "and God help us all." As the order echoed through communication channels, the invisible fleet prepared to reveal itself. Humanity's last stand was about to begin. Part 4. The battle raged on, a chaotic dance of light and destruction in the cold emptiness of space. The invisible fleet darted between the massive Varnock ships, their sleek designs cutting through the void like blades. Plasma torpedoes streaked across the battlefield, striking alien hulls with bursts of fiery explosions. For every hit they landed, though, the Varnock retaliated with devastating force. Energy beams lanced out from their colossal vessels, threatening to overwhelm the smaller human ships. On board the UNSF Eclipse, Captain Daniel Brooks gripped the edge of his command chair, his eyes locked on the viewport as chaos unfolded outside. Explosions lit up the darkness, casting eerie shadows across the bridge. Alarms blared intermittently, warning of incoming fire or damaged systems. Despite the intensity of the fight, Daniel remained calm, his mind focused on one thing: survival. "They're targeting our flank," Marcus Lane shouted from his station. "Shields are holding, but we can't take much more." Rachel Scott leaned over her console, her fingers flying across the controls. "Squadron 3 is moving to intercept," she reported. "They'll buy us some time." Daniel nodded. "Good. Keep them busy while we reposition." He turned to Marcus. "How's the cloaking device holding up?" Marcus glanced at his screen, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's stable for now, but if we push it too hard, we risk exposing ourselves." "Understood," Daniel said firmly. "We hold steady. If they see even a flicker of weakness, they'll exploit it." Back on Earth, people watched the battle unfold in real time. News outlets broadcast live feeds from satellites, showing the clash between humanity's invisible fleet and the overwhelming Varnock Armada. In living rooms, cafes, and public squares, crowds gathered around screens, their faces filled with a mix of fear and hope. The sight of the sleek human ships weaving through the enemy formation inspired awe and defiance. In New York City, Sarah Miller stood in Times Square, filming the reactions of the crowd. Giant digital billboards displayed footage of the battle, interspersed with messages of encouragement from world leaders. People cheered whenever a Varnock ship exploded under the barrage of human fire, but groaned when one of their own vessels was struck. The mood was electric, a strange blend of celebration and dread. "This is history in the making," Sarah said into her microphone, her voice steady despite the noise around her. "For the first time, humanity is standing toe-to-toe with an alien threat and holding its ground." Nearby, a man held up a sign that read, "We fight back." Others joined him, chanting slogans and waving flags. It was a moment of unity, a reminder that even in the face of annihilation, humans could come together. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, the crew braced for another wave of attacks. The Varnock had regrouped, their ships forming tighter formations to counter the agility of the human fleet. Commander Zylar's voice crackled over the comms once again, dripping with anger and frustration. "You think your toys can stop us?" he sneered. "This is only the beginning." Daniel ignored the taunt, focusing instead on the tactical display in front of him. The Varnok's strategy was clear. They were trying to box the human ships in, cutting off escape routes and forcing them into close-range combat where their size and firepower would give them the advantage. "We need to break their formation," Rachel said, her tone urgent. "If we don't, they'll crush us." "I know," Daniel replied. "But how?" Rachel hesitated for a moment before speaking. "What if we use the cloaking devices to our advantage? A feint, make them think we're retreating, then hit them from behind." Daniel considered the idea, his brow furrowing in thought. It was risky, but it might work. "Do it," he said finally. "Coordinate with Squadrons 2 and 5. I want them ready to strike as soon as the Varnok take the bait." Rachel relayed the orders, her voice sharp and clear. Across the fleet, captains adjusted their positions, preparing for the maneuver. Meanwhile, Marcus monitored the cloaking systems, ensuring they remained operational despite the strain of constant movement. The plan went into motion moments later. Several squadrons of human ships disengaged from the main battle, appearing to retreat into deeper space. The Varnok took the bait immediately, shifting their focus to pursue the fleeing vessels. Their massive ships lumbered after the decoys, leaving gaps in their defensive lines. "Now!" Daniel barked. The remaining squadrons surged forward, taking advantage of the openings in the Varnok formation. Plasma torpedoes rained down on the unsuspecting alien ships, causing massive explosions that rocked the battlefield. Cheers erupted on the bridge of the Eclipse as the crew watched their plan succeed. "That's it," Rachel exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. "We've got them on the ropes." But the victory was short-lived. The Varnok quickly adapted, deploying reinforcements from deeper within their fleet. Smaller, faster ships emerged from the larger vessels, swarming the human fleet like insects. These new attackers were agile and relentless, forcing the humans to split their attention between multiple threats. "They're overwhelming us," Marcus shouted, his voice rising with panic. "Too many targets." Daniel clenched his jaw, his mind racing. They couldn't keep this up forever. The Varnok had numbers on their side, and sooner or later exhaustion would set in. He needed a new plan, something bold enough to turn the tide. "Rachel," he said sharply, "get me Dr. Dawson, now." Seconds later, Emily Dawson's voice came through the comms. "Captain Brooks, what's your status?" "We're holding, but barely," Daniel replied. "We need an edge, something to hit them where it hurts." There was a pause on the other end. Then Emily spoke, her tone measured but urgent. "I've been analyzing their communication signals. There's a central hub controlling their entire fleet. It's located on Xylar's flagship. If you can disable it, you'll disrupt their coordination." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Location?" "It's heavily guarded," Emily warned. "But if you can get close enough." "We'll do it," Daniel interrupted. He turned to Rachel. "Prepare a strike team. We're going after Xylar." Rachel nodded, already issuing orders to the crew. "You heard him, people. Let's make this count." As preparations began, Daniel allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. This mission was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it was their best chance at ending the battle. Failure wasn't an option. Humanity's survival depended on it. Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes watched the unfolding events with a mixture of pride and anxiety. The invisible fleet had proven itself capable of standing against the Varnok, but the cost was high. Reports of damaged ships and injured crew members poured in, reminding her of the sacrifices being made. "This isn't just about winning," she said quietly to General Carter, who stood beside her. "It's about showing them and ourselves that we're not afraid to fight for our home." The general nodded grimly. "Let's hope Brooks pulls it off." High above the planet, Daniel and his crew prepared for the most daring mission of their lives. The fate of humanity rested in their hands, and they were ready to give everything to protect it. As the Eclipse moved into position, the crew exchanged determined glances. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Thew. Battle wasn't over yet, but for the first time, hope burned brighter than fear. Part 3. The Varnock fleet's movements grew more deliberate, their massive ships adjusting positions in a way that sent chills down the spines of everyone watching. On Earth, sensors picked up a surge of energy emanating from the alien vessels. It was clear they were preparing for something big, something devastating. Commander Zylar's voice crackled through every communication device on the planet once again. This time, his tone was colder, more menacing. "Your time has run out," he declared. "You had your chance to surrender and you squandered it. Now you will learn the price of defiance." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving humanity holding its breath. In cities across the globe, people gathered in streets, parks, and living rooms staring at screens and praying for a miracle. Social media lit up with messages of fear, anger, and hope as billions of voices united in uncertainty. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes stood in the Situation Room, her hands gripping the edge of the conference table. Her advisors buzzed around her, updating her on the latest developments. General Robert Carter paced back and forth, his face grim. "They're going to strike soon," he said. "We need to act now." Dr. Emily Dawson nodded in agreement. "Operation Phantom is ready," she said, "but we have to time this perfectly. If we reveal ourselves too early, they'll adjust their strategy. Too late and—" She didn't finish the sentence. Laura took a deep breath. "Then let's—" "Make sure we get it right," she said firmly. Turning to Dr. Dawson, she added, "Keep me updated on their movements and contact Captain Brooks. I want him standing by." Meanwhile, aboard the UNSF Eclipse, Captain Daniel Brooks and his crew braced themselves for what was coming. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Each person focused intently on their tasks. Sensors showed the Varnock ships powering up their weapon systems, and everyone knew an attack was imminent. "Energy readings are spiking," Marcus Lane reported from his station. "They're locking onto targets on the surface." Rachel Scott clenched her fists, her eyes fixed on the viewport. "They're targeting major cities," she said quietly. "New York, Tokyo, London. They're going after population centers." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Stay sharp," he ordered. "As soon as they fire, we move." Back on Earth, chaos erupted as the first wave of attacks began. Bright beams of energy shot down from the alien ships, striking cities with devastating force. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and thousands of lives were lost in an instant. The destruction was unimaginable, and panic spread like wildfire. In New York City, Sarah Miller found herself caught in the middle of the nightmare. She had been interviewing survivors in Central Park when the sky lit up with blinding flashes. People screamed and ran in all directions as explosions rocked the city. Sarah ducked behind a tree, clutching her camera tightly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. This story wasn't just about survival, it was about bearing witness. "This is Sarah Miller reporting live from Manhattan," she said into her microphone, her voice trembling but determined. "The Varnock have launched their attack. The city is under siege. I repeat, the city is under siege. We need help. Please, someone." Her transmission cut off as another blast shook the ground beneath her feet. Smoke filled the air, and the sound of sirens wailed in the distance. Despite the terror surrounding her, Sarah refused to give up. She snapped photos and recorded videos, documenting the devastation for the world to see. Elsewhere, military forces scrambled to respond. Fighter jets roared into the skies, attempting to engage the alien ships, but their efforts were futile. Missiles exploded harmlessly against the Varnock's shields, and even the most advanced weaponry proved useless against the invaders' technology. It was clear that conventional tactics wouldn't work. In the Situation Room, President Laura Hayes watched the unfolding catastrophe with growing despair. Cities burned, and countless lives were being lost. She turned to Dr. Emily Dawson, her voice firm despite the weight of the moment. "It's time," she said. "Activate Operation Phantom." Emily nodded and relayed the order to the invisible fleet. Across the globe, hidden ships decloaked one by one, revealing themselves to the stunned Varnock fleet. Sleek, futuristic warships materialized in orbit. their surfaces shimmering faintly as they positioned themselves between the alien armada and Earth. On board the Eclipse, Daniel Brooks gave the command to decloak. As the ship's cloaking device disengaged, the view outside the viewport shifted dramatically. What had once been empty space was now filled with dozens of identical vessels, their presence radiating strength and resolve. "This is Captain Daniel Brooks of the United Nations Space Defense Force," he announced over an open channel. His voice was calm but commanding. "Cease your attacks immediately or face the consequences." For a moment, there was silence. Then Commander Zeiler's voice boomed through the comms, dripping with disbelief and fury. "What trickery is this?" he demanded. "How dare you deceive us?" Daniel's response was measured. "This is no trick," he said. "You underestimated us. Now it's your turn to surrender, or face the consequences." The Varnock fleet hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the human ships. Their arrogance had blinded them to the possibility that humanity might possess advanced technology of its own. For the first time since their arrival, they appeared uncertain. On Earth, the revelation of the invisible fleet sparked a mix of emotions. Relief swept through some areas as people realized humanity still had a fighting chance. Others remained skeptical, wondering if the new ships could truly stand up to the Varnock's overwhelming power. In New York City, Sarah Miller captured the moment on camera. She stood amidst the ruins, filming the alien ships in the sky and the newly revealed human fleet taking position. "This is unprecedented," she said into her microphone. "Humanity has unveiled a secret weapon, a fleet of advanced warships, capable of challenging the invaders. Whether it will be enough remains to be seen." Back in the Situation Room, President Laura Hayes addressed her team. "This is our chance," she said. "Let's show them what we're made of." "General," Carter nodded. "Orders?" "Full engagement," Laura replied without hesitation. "We fight back with everything we've got." As the order echoed through communication channels, the invisible fleet sprang into action. The sleek ships moved with incredible speed and precision, weaving through the Varnock armada and launching coordinated attacks. Lasers and plasma torpedoes streaked through space, striking the alien vessels with surprising effectiveness. The Varnock fought back fiercely, their larger ships firing powerful energy beams that threatened to overwhelm the smaller human craft. Explosions lit up the void as both sides exchanged blows, turning the area around Earth into a battlefield unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Aboard the Eclipse, Daniel and his crew worked tirelessly to outmaneuver their enemies. Rachel barked orders to squadron leaders, directing their movements with pinpoint accuracy. Marcus monitored the ship's systems, ensuring the cloaking device remained stable despite the intense combat. "They're targeting our engines," Marcus shouted as alarms blared across the bridge. "Divert power to the shields," Daniel commanded. "And keep moving. We can't let them pin us down." The battle raged on, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. The Varnocks, sheer size and numbers gave them an edge, but humanity's agility and stealth technology allowed them to hold their ground. It was a brutal, relentless fight, and casualties mounted on both sides. Despite the odds, hope began to rise among those watching from Earth. The invisible fleet had proven that humanity wasn't as helpless as the Varnock believed. People cheered as footage of the battle played on news channels, showing the sleek human ships darting through the chaos and striking back against their attackers. In New York City, Sarah Miller filmed the crowd gathering in Times Square, their faces illuminated by the glow of massive screens broadcasting the battle. Some clapped and cheered while others prayed silently. "This is humanity's moment," Sarah said into her microphone. "We may be small, but we're not weak. Not anymore." As the fighting continued, it became clear that the tide of the battle would depend on strategy as much as firepower. Daniel knew they couldn't win through brute force alone. They needed a plan. He glanced at Rachel, who was already thinking ahead. "We need to hit their command structure," she said. "Take out their leadership and the rest will fall apart." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. Let's find Zeiler's flagship and end this." With renewed determination, the invisible fleet regrouped and prepared for their next move. Humanity's survival depended on what happened next. Part 5. The Eclipse maneuvered silently through the chaos of battle, its sleek form gliding like a shadow between the massive Varnock ships. Captain Daniel Brooks stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the tactical display in front of him. The plan was risky, almost reckless, but it was their only chance to cripple the alien fleet's command structure. Xyler's flagship loomed ahead, its size dwarfing even the largest human vessels. It pulsed with energy, a glowing beacon of power and arrogance. "We're approaching the target," Rachel Scott announced from her station. Her voice was steady, though tension lined her face. "Enemy patrols are heavy around the flagship. They know we're coming." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "Stay sharp, we'll need every advantage we can get." He glanced at Marcus Lane, who was monitoring the cloaking device. "How's the system holding up?" Marcus tapped furiously at his console. "It's stable, for now. But if we take any direct hits, it could fail. And then we're sitting ducks." "Understood," Daniel replied. "Keep us invisible as long as possible. Once we're inside, stealth won't matter anymore." The strike team consisted of 5 ships, including the Eclipse. Each vessel carried a small crew trained for infiltration missions. Their objective was clear: breach Xyler's flagship, locate the central communication hub, and disable it. Without coordination, the Varnock fleet would fall into disarray, giving humanity the upper hand. As they neared the flagship, the ship's defenses came into view. Energy shields shimmered faintly, blocking access to its interior. Smaller Varnock fighters patrolled the area, their movements erratic but vigilant. The humans would have to time their approach perfectly to avoid detection. "All right, listen up," Daniel said over the comms, addressing the entire strike team. "We've got one shot at this. Stick to the plan and don't deviate unless absolutely necessary. If anyone sees trouble, report it immediately." The other captains acknowledged his orders, their voices firm despite the danger. Everyone knew what was at stake. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that humanity could stand against overwhelming odds. Rachel guided the Eclipse closer to the flagship, weaving through debris and dodging patrols. Her hands moved deftly across the controls, her focus unwavering. "We're within range," she said finally. "Ready to deploy boarding pods." Daniel gave the order, and the strike team launched several small boarding pods from their ships. These pods were designed to bypass shields by attaching directly to the hull of enemy vessels. Inside each pod, teams of engineers and Marines prepared for the next phase of the mission. Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes watched the live feed from the battle, her heart pounding. The footage showed flashes of light and bursts of explosions as the human fleet fought valiantly against the Varnock. She turned to Dr. Emily Dawson, who stood beside her, analyzing data streams in real time. "How's the strike team doing?" Laura asked. Emily studied her screen carefully. "They've reached the flagship, but there's no confirmation yet that they've breached it. The Varnock aren't making it easy." Laura sighed, her expression grim. "Let's hope they succeed. We're running out of options." Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, Daniel felt a pang of unease as the boarding pods detached from the ship. He trusted his team, but the thought of sending them into such a hostile environment weighed heavily on him. He pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on keeping the Eclipse safe while the strike team completed their mission. Inside one of the boarding pods, Lieutenant Rachel Scott led her squad toward the flagship's outer hull. The ride was rough, jolting violently as the pod navigated through defensive fire. When they finally made contact, the impact sent everyone lurching forward. Rachel steadied herself and signaled for the team to move out. The pod's hatch opened with a hiss, revealing the cold, metallic surface of the flagship. The Marines secured grappling hooks to the hull, allowing the team to climb onto the ship. Around them, the sounds of battle echoed faintly, the distant hum of engines and the occasional boom of an explosion. "Stay low and quiet," Rachel whispered to her team. "We don't want to alert them until we're inside." Using specialized tools, the engineers began cutting through the thick metal plating. Sparks flew as they worked, illuminating their faces in brief bursts of light. Minutes passed before they finally broke through, creating a narrow opening large enough for the team to slip through. One by one, they entered the flagship, finding themselves in a dimly lit corridor. The air smelled strange, a mix of ozone and something metallic. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. The team exchanged wary glances, unsure of what awaited them deeper inside. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the Marines, gripping his weapon tightly. "Focus!" Rachel snapped. "We've got a job to do, let's move." They advanced cautiously, sticking to the shadows as much as possible. The corridors twisted and turned unpredictably, making navigation difficult. At every intersection, Rachel paused to check for signs of movement or traps. So far, they hadn't encountered any resistance, but she knew it was only a matter of time. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the hallway. The team froze, listening intently. Moments later, a group of Varnock soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons raised. They hadn't seen the humans yet, but it was only seconds before they did. Rachel acted quickly, signaling for her team to take cover. She pulled a small device from her belt, a flashbang, and tossed it into the corridor. A blinding burst of light erupted, followed by a deafening roar. The Varnock staggered back, disoriented, giving the humans the opening they needed. "Now!" Rachel shouted. The Marines opened fire, their weapons blazing. The Varnock returned fire, but their confusion gave the humans the edge. Within moments, the aliens were down, their bodies slumping to the floor. The team moved forward, stepping over the fallen enemies as they pressed onward. Deeper into the flagship, the environment grew stranger. The walls seemed alive, shifting, subtly under the glow of the symbols. Strange machinery hummed softly, emitting vibrations that made the team's teeth ache. They passed rooms filled with grotesque equipment, things that looked part machine, part organic tissue. No one spoke. The sight was too unsettling. Finally, they reached their destination, the central communication hub. The room was massive, dominated by a towering structure that pulsed with energy. Wires and conduits snaked across the floor, connecting the device to various terminals scattered throughout the chamber. "That's it," Rachel said, pointing to the structure. "Take it out." The engineers sprang into action, setting charges around the base of the device. As they worked, Rachel kept watch, her weapon trained on the entrance. Every second felt like an eternity, the tension mounting with each passing moment. "Charges set," one of the engineers called out. "We're ready to detonate." Rachel nodded. "Do it." A series of small explosions rocked the chamber as the charges went off, severing connections and disabling the central hub. The glowing symbols flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. For a moment there was silence. Then alarms blared, piercing and relentless. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "They know we're here," Rachel said grimly. "Fall back to the extraction point, move!" The team retraced their steps, moving as fast as they could without losing caution. Behind them, the flagship trembled as systems failed and chaos spread. The Varnock fleet above began to falter, their once coordinated attacks becoming disjointed and erratic. As the strike team reached the hull, the boarding pods awaited them. One by one, they climbed aboard, sealing the hatches behind them. The pods detached from the flagship and sped back, toward the waiting ships of the invisible fleet. On board the Eclipse, Daniel received confirmation that the strike team had succeeded. Relief washed over him, but he knew the fight wasn't over yet. The Varnock might be weakened, but they weren't defeated. "Good work," he said over the comms. "Now let's finish this." With renewed determination, the human fleet surged forward, pressing their advantage. For the first time since the invasion began, hope burned brighter than fear. Humanity had struck a blow against the invaders, and it wasn't going to stop there. Part 6. The strike team's success reverberated across the battlefield. With Xylar's flagship crippled and its central communication hub destroyed, the Varnock fleet began to unravel. Ships that had once moved in perfect synchronization now drifted aimlessly, their crews struggling to regain control. Explosions erupted sporadically as human forces seized the opportunity to press their advantage. On board the UNSF Eclipse, Captain Daniel Brooks watched as chaos spread through the alien armada. The tactical display showed fragments of the Varnock, fleet breaking apart, their formations collapsing under the weight of confusion. It was a sight that filled him with cautious optimism, but he knew better than to celebrate too soon. The Varnock were still dangerous, even without their command structure intact. "Keep pushing," Daniel ordered his crew. "We've got them, on the ropes, but they're not out yet." Rachel Scott nodded, her eyes focused on the screens in front of her. "Squadrons reporting in. Most of the enemy ships are retreating toward the core of their fleet. They're trying to regroup." "Marcus," Lane chimed in from his station. "Their energy readings are spiking again. Looks like they're powering up for another attack." Daniel clenched his jaw. "They won't go down without a fight. Let's make sure this is the last one." Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes monitored the battle alongside Dr. Emily Dawson and General Robert Carter. Screens displayed live footage of the conflict, showing the invisible fleet weaving through the disarrayed Varnock ships. Each explosion elicited cheers from the room, but Laura remained somber. Victory wasn't guaranteed, not yet. "They're adapting," Emily said, pointing at a cluster of data on her screen. "Some of their ships are forming new defensive lines. If we don't act fast, they'll stabilize and counterattack." General Carter crossed his arms. "What do you suggest?" Emily hesitated for a moment before responding. "We need to hit them hard while they're vulnerable. Focus all our resources on their remaining command vessels. Take those out and the rest will fall apart completely." Laura nodded, her expression resolute. "Do it. Relay the order to Captain Brooks immediately." As the instructions reached the Eclipse, Daniel wasted no time implementing the strategy. He divided the fleet into two groups, one to engage, the Varnock directly, drawing their attention, and another to target key weak points in their formation. The plan was risky. It required splitting their forces, but it was their best chance at ending the battle decisively. "Lieutenant Scott," Daniel said, turning to Rachel, "coordinate the main assault. I'll lead the infiltration team." Rachel's eyes widened. "Sir, are you sure? That's incredibly dangerous." "I know," Daniel replied calmly. "But someone has to do it. And if we don't take out their remaining command ships, this fight could drag on indefinitely." Rachel didn't argue further. She knew Daniel was right. Instead, she focused on organizing the fleet, issuing orders to squadron leaders with precision and clarity. Meanwhile, Daniel prepared a small team to accompany him aboard the Eclipse as they moved toward the heart of the Varnock fleet. Before leaving, Daniel addressed the crew over the ship's comms. "This is it, people. We've shown them what we're made of, but we can't let up now. Stay sharp, stay strong, and remember why we're here. For Earth, for humanity." His words ignited a renewed sense of determination among the crew. Everyone understood the stakes and the sacrifices that might lie ahead. High above the planet, the battle intensified. Human ships launched relentless attacks against the Varnock, forcing them into retreat. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, striking alien vessels with devastating force. Explosions lit up the void, painting the battlefield in flashes of fiery light. Meanwhile, the Eclipse slipped behind enemy lines, its cloaking device masking its presence. Daniel's infiltration team navigated carefully, avoiding patrols and dodging debris. Their target was clear, a heavily guarded command ship near the center of the Varnock formation. If they could disable it, the entire fleet would collapse. "This is insane," muttered Marcus as he monitored the ship's systems. "If they detect us, we're dead." "We'll be fine," Daniel said firmly. "Just keep us cloaked." The tension aboard the Eclipse was palpable. Every member of the crew knew the risks involved in this mission. Failure meant certain death, not just for them, but for humanity itself. Yet despite the danger, there was a shared sense of purpose. They weren't fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone back home. As they approached the command ship, the team prepared boarding pods once again. This time, however, the stakes were higher. The Varnock had reinforced their defenses, deploying drones and automated turrets to protect their remaining leadership. Breaching the ship would require skill, courage, and a bit of luck. "Ready?" Daniel asked his team as they climbed into the pods. Everyone nodded, their expressions grim but determined. They knew what awaited them inside the alien vessel, but none of them hesitated. Humanity's survival depended on their success. The pods launched silently, attaching to the hull of the command ship moments later. Inside, the infiltration team disembarked, cutting through the metal plating with practiced efficiency. Once inside, they found themselves in a labyrinthine corridor system, eerily similar to Xylar's flagship. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, casting an unsettling light over the scene. "This place gives me the creeps," whispered one of the Marines, gripping his weapon tightly. "Focus," Daniel snapped. "Stay alert. We've got a job to do." The team advanced cautiously, sticking to the shadows as much as possible. At every turn, they encountered resistance. Varnock soldiers patrolling the corridors, automated turrets scanning for intruders, and strange, pulsating machinery that seemed almost alive. The air was thick with tension, each step bringing them closer to their objective. Finally, they reached the command chamber. The room was massive, dominated by a towering console surrounded by glowing panels and wires. In the center stood Commander Xylar himself, his form grotesque and imposing. His eyes narrowed as he spotted the humans entering the room. "You dare challenge me?" Xylar growled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You are nothing but insects." Daniel raised his weapon, aiming it squarely at the alien commander. "Not anymore," he said calmly. "Your reign ends here." A fierce firefight erupted as the Marines engaged Xylar's guards. Blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls, filling the chamber with smoke and noise. Despite being outnumbered, the humans fought with unmatched determination. One by one, the Varnock fell until only Xylar remained. The alien commander snarled, raising his own weapon. But before he could fire, Rachel stepped forward, her aim steady. A single shot rang out, striking Xylar square in the chest. He staggered backward, collapsing onto the floor with a guttural roar. "It's over," Rachel said quietly, lowering her weapon. With Xylar defeated, the team moved quickly to disable the command ship's systems. Engineers set charges around the console, ensuring the vessel would never pose a threat again. As the explosives detonated, the ship shuddered violently, its lights flickering and dying. "We're done here," Daniel said, signaling for the team to retreat. "Let's get out of here." The infiltration team raced back to the boarding pods, narrowly avoiding collapsing sections of the ship as it began to self-destruct. Moments later, they reattached to the Eclipse, which immediately disengaged. From the doomed vessel, outside, the human fleet continued its assault, hammering away at the remnants of the Varnock armada. Without their leadership, the aliens crumbled under the relentless barrage. Ships exploded in bursts of light, their wreckage drifting lifelessly through space. On Earth, people cheered as news of the victory spread. In New York City, Sarah Miller filmed the jubilant crowds gathering in Times Square, their faces alight with relief and pride. "This is it," she said into her microphone. "Humanity has triumphed against impossible odds. Today we proved that we are stronger together and that we will never give up." In the Situation Room, President Laura Hayes allowed herself a brief smile. "Good work, everyone," she said, addressing her team. "This isn't the end, but it's a start. Let's rebuild and prepare for whatever comes next." Above the planet, the invisible fleet regrouped, its ships battered but victorious. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, gazing out at the stars. The battle had been won, but he knew the war wasn't over. Somewhere out there, the universe held more challenges, and humanity would face them head-on. Part 8. Months passed since the battle against the Varnock, and Earth began to heal. The scars of war were still visible, in shattered cities, empty homes, and the faces of those who had lost loved ones. But there was also a sense of renewal. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger, united by a shared purpose. It was a new chapter, one filled with both challenges and opportunities. The invisible fleet became a symbol of hope. Once a secret weapon, it was now celebrated as humanity's shield against the unknown. New ships were built, larger and more advanced than before, incorporating lessons learned from the battle. Engineers worked tirelessly to improve cloaking, technology, weapon systems, and defensive measures. The fleet wasn't just a military force anymore. It represented humanity's determination to protect itself and explore the stars. Captain Daniel Brooks remained at the helm of the UNSF Eclipse, leading missions beyond Earth's orbit. His crew had grown closer over time, bound by the experiences they had shared. Rachel Scott continued to serve as his second-in-command, her tactical brilliance earning her widespread respect. Marcus Lane stayed aboard as well, ensuring the ship's experimental systems ran smoothly. Together they patrolled the edges of human space, keeping watch for any signs of danger. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to a rhythm of normalcy. Cities rebuilt themselves, rising from the ashes stronger than before. Schools reopened, businesses flourished, and families found ways to move forward. Yet the memory of the invasion lingered in subtle ways. Children played games inspired by the battle, pretending to pilot invisible ships or fight off alien invaders. Adults spoke of the event with a mix of pride and caution, reminding each other that vigilance was key to survival. President Laura Hayes worked tirelessly to ensure humanity remained united. She spearheaded efforts to create a global defense network, bringing together nations that had once been divided. "We've seen what happens when we stand apart," she said during a speech at the United Nations. "But we've also seen what happens when we come together. Let's not forget that lesson." Dr. Emily Dawson led the scientific community in studying the alien technology recovered from the Varnock fleet. Her team made groundbreaking discoveries, unlocking secrets about faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and advanced weaponry. These innovations promised to revolutionize human society, but Emily stressed the importance of using them responsibly. "This isn't just about power," she told reporters. "It's about progress and protecting our future." In New York City, Sarah Miller finished her book tour, meeting fans and sharing stories of resilience. Her work had inspired millions, offering a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could triumph. When asked about her plans for the future, she smiled. "I'm going to keep writing," she said. "There are so many untold stories out there, stories of courage, innovation, and hope. Someone needs to tell them." As the months turned into a year, humanity prepared for the possibility of another encounter with extraterrestrial life. The invisible fleet expanded. Training programs grew more rigorous, and early warning systems were put in place to detect potential threats. Despite these precautions, no one knew when or if the aliens would return. But everyone agreed on one thing: Earth would be ready. One evening, aboard the Eclipse, Daniel stood alone on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The ship was docked at a space station orbiting Earth, undergoing routine maintenance. He sipped a cup of coffee, his thoughts drifting to the battles fought and the lives lost. It had been a long journey, but he felt a quiet sense of pride knowing they had made a difference. Rachel joined him moments later, carrying her own drink. "Still thinking about it?" she asked, leaning against the railing. "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. "It's hard not to." Rachel nodded, her eyes reflecting the distant glow of the stars. "Do you think we'll see them again? The Varnock? I don't know," Daniel replied honestly. "Maybe. Or maybe it'll be someone else entirely. All I know is we can't let our guard down." "You won't hear me arguing with that," Rachel said with a small smile. "But do you ever think about what comes next, beyond just defending ourselves?" Daniel hesitated, considering the question. "I think about it all the time," he said finally. "We've proven we can fight back. Now it's time to prove we can build something lasting, something worth fighting for." Rachel looked at him thoughtfully. "You're talking about exploration?" "Yeah," Daniel said, his voice softening. "Out there." He gestured toward the vast expanse of space. "Are answers to questions we haven't even asked yet. Maybe allies, maybe dangers. Either way, we owe it to ourselves to find out." Their conversation was interrupted by a chime from the ship's comm system. "Captain Brooks," came Marcus's voice. "We've received an update from HQ. They want us to patrol Sector 12 tomorrow. Something unusual showed up on the scanners." Daniel exchanged a glance with Rachel. "Unusual how?" "They didn't say," Marcus replied. "Just that it's worth checking out." "All right," Daniel said. "Tell the crew to prep the ship. We leave at 0600. As Rachel headed off to relay the orders, Daniel lingered on the observation deck a little longer. The universe stretched endlessly before him, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Whatever lay ahead, whether it was peace or conflict, he knew humanity was ready to face it. The next morning, the Eclipse launched from the space station, its sleek form disappearing into the void. As it entered Sector 12, sensors detected a faint signal emanating from deep space. It was unlike anything they had encountered before, rhythmic pulses of energy, almost like a heartbeat. The crew gathered on the bridge, their curiosity piqued. "What do you think it is?" Marcus asked, adjusting the settings on his console. "I don't know," Rachel said, studying the readings. "But it's definitely artificial." Daniel leaned forward in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Let's investigate. Keep the cloaking device active until we know what we're dealing with." The ship moved cautiously toward the source of the signal, its crew alert and ready for anything. As they drew closer, a faint outline appeared on the scanners, a massive structure floating silently in the darkness. Its design was unfamiliar, neither human nor Varnock. "This isn't one of theirs," Rachel murmured, her voice tinged with, no," Daniel agreed. "It's something new." For a moment, no one spoke. The sight of the alien construct filled them with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. What secrets did it hold? Was it a threat or an opportunity? "We'll approach carefully," Daniel said finally. "If this is a chance to learn, we take it, but if it's dangerous, we'll handle it," Rachel finished, her tone firm. The Eclipse edged closer, its lights illuminating the mysterious object. Symbols etched into its surface glowed faintly, pulsing in sync with the signal. It was clear this wasn't just debris, it was a message waiting to be deciphered. As the crew prepared to make contact, Daniel allowed himself a moment of reflection. Humanity had come so far in such a short time, proving its strength and ingenuity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, with courage, determination, and an unshakable belief in the future. The stars twinkled in the distance, infinite and inviting. And somewhere among them, humanity's story continued to unfold. Part 7. The victory was sweet, but it came at a cost. The human fleet had suffered heavy losses during the battle, and many ships were damaged beyond repair. Across the globe, families mourned the brave men and women who had given their lives to defend Earth. In hospitals, wounded soldiers lay recovering, their faces etched with pain but also pride. They had fought for something greater than themselves, and they had won. On board the UNSF. Eclipse, Captain Daniel Brooks stood in silence, his gaze fixed on the viewport. Outside, the remnants of the Varnock fleet drifted through space, their once mighty ships now nothing more than floating debris. The sight filled him with a mix of emotions: relief, sorrow, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. "Casualty reports are coming in," Rachel Scott said softly, breaking the quiet that had settled over the bridge. Her voice was tinged with sadness as she relayed the numbers. "We lost nearly half our fleet. Thousands of lives. Gone," Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "It's a price we had to pay," he said quietly. "But we'll honor them. Every single one of them." Marcus Lane, seated at his station, looked up from his console. "What do we do now?" he asked. "Do we chase after the survivors or regroup?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "We let the ones who fled go for now, but we need to stay vigilant. This isn't over." Back on Earth, President Laura Hayes addressed the nation from the White House. Cameras captured her solemn expression as she spoke to billions of people around the world. "Today, Humanity has shown its strength, she began. We have faced an enemy unlike any we've ever known, and we have prevailed. But let us not forget the sacrifices made by those who stood on the front lines. Their courage will never be forgotten. She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. This is not just a victory for one country or one people. It is a victory for all of us. Together we prove that no matter how great the challenge, we can overcome it if we stand united. Her words resonated deeply, sparking hope and determination among listeners. People gathered in streets and parks holding candles and singing songs of gratitude. In New York City, Sarah Miller documented the celebrations, capturing moments of unity and resilience. A young boy handed her a drawing he had made, a crude but heartfelt depiction of Earth surrounded by stars. "This is for everyone," I said shyly. Sarah smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," she replied. "I'll make sure the world sees it." As the initial euphoria of victory began to settle, attention turned to the aftermath. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to study the wreckage left behind by the Varnock fleet. Salvage teams ventured into orbit, retrieving pieces of alien technology that could help advance human capabilities. Dr. Emily Dawson led the effort, her team poring over every fragment they could recover. "This is a treasure trove," Emily said to Laura Hayes during a briefing. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If we can understand it, we might be able to protect ourselves better next time." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "How long will it take?" "It depends," Emily admitted. "Some of this stuff is so advanced, it might take years to fully comprehend, but even small breakthroughs could make a big difference." Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipso, the crew prepared for their return to Earth. The ship was battered, its systems strained from the intense battle, but it remained operational. As they approached the planet, the crew gathered on the bridge to watch the blue and green orb grow larger in the viewport. "We did good," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "Didn't we?" Rachel smiled faintly. "Yeah, we did." Daniel didn't say anything, but his eyes softened as he gazed at the planet below. For all its flaws, Earth was home, and worth fighting for. Upon landing, the crew of the Eclipse received a hero's welcome. Crowds lined the streets, cheering and waving flags as the ship touched down at a military base. Reporters swarmed the area, eager to hear first-hand accounts of the battle. Daniel stepped off the ship first, followed by Rachel, Marcus, and the rest of the team. They were greeted with applause, tears, and cries of gratitude. "You saved us," someone shouted from the crowd. Daniel raised a hand signaling for quiet. When the noise subsided, he spoke. "We didn't do this alone," he said firmly. "Every person on this planet played a part, whether it was building the ships, supporting the troops, or simply refusing to give up hope. This victory belongs to all of us." His words earned another round of cheers, but Daniel's mind was already elsewhere. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding would take time, resources, and effort, and there was always the possibility that the Varnock, or another alien species, might return. Later that evening, Daniel found himself standing on a hill overlooking the city. The lights twinkled below, a reminder of everything they had fought to protect. Rachel joined him moments later, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, handing him one of the cups. He shook his head. "Too much on my mind." Rachel nodded, sipping her drink. "Me too. Do you think they'll come back?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "Probably, but if they do, we'll be ready." They stood in silence for a while, watching the horizon. Despite the uncertainty of the future, there was a sense of peace between them. They had done what needed to be done, and for now, that was enough. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after such an event. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and communities began rebuilding. Yet beneath the surface, changes were happening. Governments collaborated more openly, sharing resources and knowledge to strengthen Earth's defenses. Scientists worked around the clock, studying the alien technology and developing new innovations. Dr. Emily Dawson became a household name. Her interviews broadcast worldwide. She spoke passionately about the importance of using the recovered technology wisely, emphasizing the need for caution and ethics. "We have a chance to learn from this," she told a packed auditorium during a lecture. "Let's not waste it." Sarah Miller published her book, From Ashes to Stars, chronicling the events of the invasion and humanity's response. It became an instant bestseller, inspiring readers with stories of courage and resilience. In the final chapter, she wrote, "This was not just a battle for survival. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. No matter what challenges lie ahead, we will face them together." As weeks turned into months, the Invisible Fleet was officially revealed to the public. What had once been a closely guarded secret was now celebrated as humanity's greatest achievement. New ships were constructed, incorporating lessons learned from the battle. Training programs were expanded, ensuring that future generations would be prepared to defend Earth. For Daniel and his crew, life moved forward. They continued serving aboard the Eclipse, leading missions to explore the stars and safeguard humanity's place among them. Though scars remained, both physical and emotional, they carried on with a renewed sense of purpose. One night, as Daniel stared out at the endless expanse of space, he felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing against the unknown. And while the universe held countless mysteries and dangers, he knew one thing for certain: Earth would never back down without a fight. The battle may have ended, but the journey was far from over.